This is the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. In this edition, Monetary Policy Committee of Bank of Ghana raises key lending rate to 19% as inflation for June rises to 4-year high of 15%. Government, in the face of the worrying indices, is being advised to explore creative ways of shoring up government revenue. In another development, the Bank of Ghana says government's air freighting of millions of dollars to the Black Stars in Brazil, though irregular, was done with its blessing, except the governor insists he's unaware of the amount involved. Parliament has meanwhile been formally informed of the setting up of a 3-man committee to investigate Ghana's disappointing performance at the 2014 World Cup, as it considers its own bipartisan investigative committee. And as health authorities step up efforts to prevent the infiltration of the deadly Ebola virus through Ghana's borders, some travelers appear to be finding ways of avoiding the border controls. Also coming up in the bulletin, sports, showbiz, and international news too. Stay tuned.
News at 8 with Israel Rai.
The National Education Campaign Coalition has endorsed the Secondary School Improvement Project to be financed with a $156 million loan from the World Bank. The project seeks to increase access to senior high schools, improve equity in underserved districts, and provide scholarships to students from low-income families, especially girls. There has been heavy criticism and ridiculing of especially the sanitary pads handout component, but the GNECC says these are unfounded.
The sanitary pad component of the Secondary School Improvement Project, though takes up less than 1% of the $156 million facility, has become the most talked about. The Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition is, however, of the view that the media and Ghanaians should be focusing on other aspects of the project.
All stakeholders, including the media and civil society groups, as well as politicians, must support progress to empower the public, especially beneficiary community, to hold all key actors and duty bearers in this process accountable. Spaces should be created for community participation in the procurement processes at the district and the school level, assessment of quality of construction of school buildings, and administration of scholarship packages, among others.
The coalition nonetheless declared absolute support for the sanitary pad component.
We were in a community recently. We did a survey when this particular issue cropped out, and we were trying to find out from children how much the parents even give them to come to school. And averagely, parents, in this modern society that we live, parents give their children 20 pesos. And the cost of a sanitary pad averagely costs about 3 Ghana cedis. So you can imagine the difficulties that such children are going through. So we want to state our position that we clearly support the inclusion of sanitary pad in this program. And what we are concerned about is that as civil society as well as the media, we should be interested in monitoring the process to ensure that the right people benefit from it.
NEC pledged to monitor the program to ensure the right thing is done.
We are going to monitor this process because we have already secured resources to even monitor the utilization of the $75 million that government has acquired from the Global Partnership Education Fund. We have secured resource from that fund to also monitor how government is going to utilize it. And one of the components is that government is going to give a capitation to some rural deprived communities, which they have listed the deprived communities and all that.
The coalition urged all stakeholders to work together to ensure that Ghanaian youth in both urban and rural areas, including persons with disabilities, have the opportunity to be educated to the highest level they desire.
The Minister for Youth and Sports has formally informed Parliament of the formation of a 3-member committee by the President to investigate the Black Stars' poor showing and events culminating in their early exit from the 2014 World Cup. The announcement follows the adoption of a motion filed by the ranking member of the Committee of Youth and Sport in Parliament to investigate the same issue.
In a statement read by the new Minister for Youth and Sports, Mahama Yariga, the three-member committee, which was formed by a directive from the President, is to investigate the happenings in the Black Stars camp before, during and after the World Cup. They include a Court of Appeal judge, a sports administrator and a banker.
Pursuant to President John Dramani Mahama's directive, a committee has been set up to review Ghana's participation and unexpected early exit from the 2014 FIFA World Cup tournament in Brazil. The Ministerial Committee will be directed to conclude its work within 30 days of their inauguration and to present their report immediately thereafter.
He also outlined the core mandate of the committee to the House. Even though FIFA frowns on political interference, the minister was of the opinion the football governing body will welcome the initiative.
We have no doubt that FIFA will not have objections to participating nations reviewing and inquiring into their poor performance with a view to carrying out reforms that will improve their nation's teams. Stronger teams will ensure more exciting FIFA tournaments in the future. We believe that all stakeholders will cooperate with the committee. The President of the GFA has already welcomed the inquiry.
Earlier, the Speaker was in a fix as to whether to allow the Minister to make the statement on a motion filed by a member of the House, as provided in Order 72 in the Standing Orders of Parliament, which permits the statement by a Minister of State. The Speaker eventually allowed the statement to be made after some debate, but deferred the comments on the statement until the member's motion is moved.
Once I have a say in 72, I do not have a say in 72. And in view of the motion, I thought it was not prudent. But I cannot also prevent a Minister of State under 72 to come and say whatever he wants to say. It is on that basis, in consultation, I mentioned it to the leaders, that I've allowed the statement to make. And I want to say that that does not in any way affect the motion being moved on the floor of the House. I want to make these opening remarks.
Emmanuel Ante, Joy News, Parliament House, Accra.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Youth and Sports Committee of Parliament has suggested the motion filed by the ranking member of the committee be stood down or reviewed, since they are both requesting the same thing. According to him, this will cause some inconvenience along the line, and rather suggested members wait for the report of the committee and then interrogate it.
I am of the view that the motion will have to be reviewed. The motion will have to be reviewed.
It seems the minority are also not happy with the formation of a committee by the government. They seem not to have trust.
No, excuse me, you've got to, this is the government in power, a government that is running the affairs of this country. Committees have been formed in the past and they've all delivered.
You want it to be formed from Parliament?
No, I mean, the point is this. In principle, I just indicated that I don't think anybody in Parliament will disagree. But in principle, the two are almost about having the same information for the people of this country. Because when we bring eyes also on board, it will be as if it's stampeding. Even though we are independent, we can choose to do our own thing, and of course, but then I think we just fair nice to the people that we think have questions to answer, that may be called upon to appear before these committees, not to be overly, troubled by asking them, look, today you are here, tomorrow you are there, and almost say the same thing and all that. So we should rather be thinking of the final report of the three-member committee and probably interrogating that.
St. Ghana says it is still bent on ensuring that the 2% of the District Assembly's Common Fund earmarked for persons living with disabilities is allocated to them. During a national policy dialogue Tuesday on the Common Fund, the group charged the local government ministry to also implement workable policies that improve the quality of life of Ghanaians, especially the vulnerable.
The District Assembly's Common Fund, under Article 252 of the 1992 Constitution, mandates district assemblies to set aside 2% of the fund for persons with disabilities. However, this has not been the situation.
For the past 15 years,
we've never gone back to systematically document when government says it will do this, and it has done it, to document the implementation of commitments that government make. With the person with disability, one of the commitments the government made in 2010, they said that they were going to put in place guidelines for the use of the 2% District Assembly Common Fund. That was a commitment that they made in response to saying Ghana work on the use of a District Assembly Common Fund 2% for persons with disability. Government has put in place that measure. We call that commitment in response to our research. Then we went back. Now you put in place the policy. You put in place the guideline. What is happening? Is it being implemented?
The National Policy Dialogue on the District Assembly's Common Fund also highlighted reports from the district's regional dialogues and commitments secured from stakeholders to make the 2% accessible.
The review showed that the GPRS 1 did not cater for persons with disability, even though it was trying to alleviate the poverty of the poor in the country, and we all recognize that persons with disability fall within the brackets of the poorest of the poor. So the GPRS 2 made provision for persons with disability, and for that matter, the government directed that the District Assembly Common Fund should have a portion for persons with disability. What it failed to do at that point was to give clear guidelines as to the disbursement and the utilization of that allocation.
A representative from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development pledged government's readiness to support the vulnerable and correct all anomalies with the District Assembly's Common Fund. Send Ghana, in collaboration with the Ghana Federation of the Disabled, hinted it will continue to pursue the cause of the vulnerable in society until their issues are addressed.
Members of the West African Health Organization, Ghana, are calling on government to, as a matter of urgency, take the necessary steps to scale up the national budgetary allocation to the health sector in conformity with the Abuja Declaration on Health. According to the General Secretary for the Health Service Workers Union, the absence of this allocation has over the years endangered the lives of several health workers in the country. He made this known at this year's joint West African Health Organization celebration in Accra.
The West African Health Service Union, through its Abuja Declaration, called on member states to, as a matter of priority, take steps to deal with occupational health safety and environment issues to ensure a safe working environment for health workers and their clients in the sub-region. This involves a 15% budgetary allocation by government towards the improvement of safety at health facilities. General Secretary of the Health Service Workers Union said government necessarily has to address workers' safety, especially with the looming threats of Ebola in the sub-region.
It's a concern and a serious worry to the Health Services Workers Union of TUC. And if care is not taken so that adequate preparations are not made, when there is an outbreak now, the employers or the authorities will expect our members, who are the employees of the service, to go out there to render the healthcare delivery services to these diseases, these sick people and those kind of things. And by that, if you don't have the gloves, if you don't have the proper implementation and other things, you yourself, you will be infected. And when you are infected, you can also die. And that is why we are raising the eyeballs that the government and the Minister of Health agencies should ensure that adequate preparations are made for any eventuality of outbreak of Ebola diseases to protect both the worker and the sick person.
He also emphasized the urgent need for retractable syringes and needles to prevent injuries to health workers.
We are talking about retractable syringes. This time around, we are talking about occupational health safety of health workers, injuries. And we are still using the old type of syringes and needles, which the health workers are at risk. But if the budget is increased to 15% and Ghana can buy the retractable syringes to flood the whole country hospitals, of course, it's going to reduce the risk element of healthcare providers, and it will bring about efficiency of healthcare delivery. Then we'll be nearing to also attain the health for all by the year 2050.
The joint West Africa Health Organization celebration this year is on the theme Universal Health Coverage, Issues, Challenges and Opportunity. Matilda Pamaga for Joy News.
You're watching the Primetime News Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. Still to come, the Bank of Ghana says government's air freighting of millions of dollars to the Black Stars in Brazil, though irregular, was done with its blessing, except the governor insists he is unaware of the amount involved. We'll be back shortly. The Bank of Ghana has defended the recent air freighting of millions of dollars to the Black Stars in Brazil, explaining that though it contravenes the country's laws, it had its blessing. The action, which made Ghana the subject of international ridicule, has been condemned by some professional bodies who believe government is not setting a good example. Central Bank Governor Dr. Kofi Wampa, however, says government secured the necessary exemption. Waivers, he says, are granted in peculiar situations, such as the computation of custom duties in dollars granted the Ghana Revenue Authority. Though reports say between $3 million and $4.5 million was flown out, the governor could not confirm.
What was the figure, please? Was it $3 million?
I don't know. Please, can you ask the government how much they No, because government have accounts with us. They have accounts with other banks as well. They withdraw monies out of the Bank of Ghana. If they withdraw money, I wouldn't know how much they flew to pay the DC. But let me say that these laws, if you look at the Foreign Exchange Act, the Bank of Ghana has the power to give exemptions in situations that demand it.
The decision by government to fly the cash to pay the Black Stars appearance fees at the World Cup, as far as the Ghana Bar Association and Institute of Chartered Accountants are concerned, was ill-advised, especially at a time when the central bank's first measures imposes a cash withdrawal limit of only $10,000. But the Bank of Ghana says it reserves the right to grant exemptions.
We give exemption to banks occasionally, oil trade and so on. So there are areas that when we see that it will affect the economy, if we don't, we will do that and monitor the situation. The
governor cited the exemption granted to the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority to compute duties in dollars.
The issue is that the imports are in dollars. They have to convert that dollars at an exchange rate into cedis in order to charge the duty. Everywhere, that is what happens because you are importing the goods from abroad. They are valued in foreign currency and then they are converted into cedis. Whether the duties are charged on the dollar amount before converted into cedis or converted into cedis before they are charged, you will get the same results.
Dr. Kofi Wampa was sure the bank will review their policies after the economy experiences some stability. Abigail Adamakonchi for Joy News.
Nigerian playwright Wole Soyinka has called on the world to complete the work against slavery, explaining that the abduction of almost 300 schoolgirls from the northern Nigerian town of Chibok is ample evidence that slavery is yet to be completely abolished. He was speaking on the occasion of his 80th birthday celebration here in Ghana, which coincided with a high-profile launch of the book, The Crucible of the Ages.
I think that if there is any kind of consciousness of a mission today for writers, that answer is Chibok. The liberation of the rest of humanity, the global comprehensive termination of that experience of enslavement, of slavery, that has shaped the African continent to today, and that has gone on for centuries. If you say, is there something that encapsulates the history of sense of mission of the African continent, I would say it is the termination, the completion of the work against slavery, of enslavement. And who are the slaves of today? The women.
Professor Wole Soyinka started off leveling criticism against writers such as himself for paying less attention to the economic underpinnings when chronicling their experiences in society.
I have decided that, especially at this stage in my life, I should show some evidence that I've absorbed a little bit of the criticisms of such ideologues. They use expressions like economic underpinning. He has failed to show the economic underpinning of why a wife one night takes a machete to her husband's head. It's not sufficient to produce material for Nollywood, entertainment, Gollywood, I believe Ghanaians call. No, you've got to show the economic underpinning of everything.
He lashed out at leaders on the African continent for the pace at which extremism is being dealt with, describing actions of the extremists and the inactions of leaders as a threat to the occupations of people like him.
A putative audience, the young ones, sent to school, suddenly vanish overnight. And in that kind of situation, we encounter people who are saying, well, let us see what they are actually going to do. We know very well that these future consumers of our product are not going to be the same human beings that went into a situation like that.
The Ebola menace is expected to feature prominently on the agenda of the 45th Ordinary Session of African Heads of States and Government to be hosted here in Accra on Thursday. Explaining the agenda for the session, Director of Communications at the Flagstaff House, Ben Doche Malo, said all member states have confirmed participation at various levels. From the Flagstaff House, Gifty Andwapia reports.
The two-day 45th Ordinary Session of Heads of State is bringing some 15 presidents of ECOWAS states to Ghana. The Flagstaff Director of Communications, Ben Doche Malo, said although the leaders do not want to create unnecessary panic, the latest health threat will be given the attention required.
Last week, if you recall, there was a meeting of the health ministers of ECOWAS under the coordination of the World Health Organization here in Accra. And the communique, if you look over the communique, they made a request that the subject must be placed on the agenda. Sometimes some of these subjects are discussed informally among the leaders, but I understand that the issue of Ebola is now firmly going to be put on the agenda for this discussion. The objective about the whole Ebola issue, if I could say it again, is that we don't want to cause unnecessary alarm. Yes, this is a very serious outbreak and should be of concern to all of us, but we shouldn't go into a state of panic and getting the wrong information out. The key words are facts and then vigilance. We need to be vigilant, and I understand that the outgoing Minister of Health in Ghana, Honorable Sharia Ite, is putting together a task force to make sure that Ghana handles the situation as best as possible. But
he said 3 non-ECOWAS members have been invited. He also explained other issues to be addressed, including governance, security, and free movement of ECOWAS members.
Now that we have the African Union lifting sanctions on Guinea-Bissau, we now need the international community to re-engage with Guinea-Bissau, provide the support that is needed to strengthen the institutions. Guinea-Bissau is a story that ECOWAS has been very deeply engaged in and has brought Guinea-Bissau this far, but it has to be sustained, according to President Mahama. They will have an interim report from the head of the ECOWAS Commission, His Excellency Mr. Kadri Desiré Ouedraogo. Basically, that will look at what has been achieved over the past half year, what is left to be achieved. Another issue that will be of concern to people is the request to have the Ebola outbreak in the 3 member states of ECOWAS also put on the agenda of the heads of state who are expected to be here.
Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
The head of the Motor Transport and Traffic Department, ACP Anwobutogi Anwone, has urged the public to cooperate with the police over impending road closures from Thursday for this weekend's ECOWAS summit. He was speaking at the Flagstaff House, where he joined a media briefing on measures put in place to ease the inconvenience that will be caused the public.
ACP Anwone says it is in the country's interest to ensure the safety of the more than 15 heads of state who will be in the country for the summit.
We don't want any head of state to come and get an accident in Ghana. I remember an ambassador, a Russian ambassador, came to Ghana and had that it was not very palatable for us. So we do not want any head of state to get involved in an accident. That is preventable. We put in all measures to make sure that Ghanaians are not unduly inconvenienced. But we also have a stake, all of us, not only the police. The country has a stake in the protection of the lives of the presidents who are visiting us. And therefore, we need to do a little bit of sacrifice. We cannot say that we'll give you 100% convenience, but we want the Ghanaians to bear with us. It's just a matter of 48 hours, and things will be over.
He, however, explained the road will not be blocked throughout the day.
One of the major roads that will be used, the Independence Avenue. So what we have decided to do is to dedicate, it's a dual carriageway. So we dedicate one part of the dual carriageway to the VVIPs and one part of it to the general public. Even there, the one part that is dedicated to the VVIP will be closed only when the VVIPs are coming out from their hotels to the conference center. Immediately they leave their hotels to the conference grounds. We'll open the roads for people to use. And then we'll target the time that they will close. And then we'll revisit the arrangement that has been put in place.
He reiterated an earlier call for the public to park their low-occupancy vehicles and patronize more mass transport options.
So we are asking the media to collaborate with us, sell the message to the general public, and let them sacrifice a little for just 2 days. I mentioned earlier on that if it is possible, it's an advice I gave, but I think some people are not taking it lightly. Park your private vehicles and join the public transport for 2 days. That will save you from probably rushing your vehicle into an accident. That is what I thought as a police officer. But it appears that people, it didn't sync well with people, and they didn't understand why I should say people should park their vehicles. It was just a suggestion that I was given.
Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Flagstaff House.
Government has presented 50 bags each of rice and sugar to Muslims in the Upper West region for the holy month of Ramadan. Outgoing Upper West Regional Minister Beats Ding making the donation on behalf of government and treated the leadership of the Muslim community to endeavor to help the needy among them. Rafiq Salam's report from Wa.
At a short ceremony at the forecourt of the Upper West Regional Coordinating Council, shortly before the donation, outgoing Upper West Regional Minister Bid Zidin said the National Democratic Congress is one government that has shown a lot of support and concern for the Muslim faith. He emphasized that it was during the time of the NDC government, led by former President Jerry John Rawlings, that Muslims were given holidays during Eid celebrations, adding the situation is no different from the current NDC government. He said President Mahama, as a leader of the nation, has a lot of respect not only for Muslims but for other religious beliefs, and it is for that reason that he has decided to support the Muslims Ummah in the region.
His Excellency believes that it is not possible to satisfy everybody, but it is a token of support to show that he supports you in this exercise, which is a very difficult exercise. We know that it will not get to every single Muslim, but it is his belief that there are some Muslims who are also very, very needy, and that when you get this in, as much as possible, you will let it get to all those people who otherwise will not be in a position to purchase either rice or sugar for themselves.
A spokesperson for the Upper West Regional Chief Imam, Alhaji Baba Dawood, thanked the President and government on behalf of all Muslims in the region.
Our sincere gratitude and thanks to the government through the regional minister for this big honor imposed on us. Peace is a prerequisite for development in any country one can think of. We therefore pledge to combine fiscal efforts and spiritual prayers to the government for peaceful coexistence, development, and forward march for the country.
The donation is valued at 14,000 Ghana cedis. Rafiq Salam's report from Wa.
The President has also, through the Eastern Regional Coordinating Council, presented food items to the Muslim community at Koforidua. The items include 50 bags of rice and 50 bags of sugar. Deputy Eastern Regional Minister Mavis Ama Frimpong, who presented the items on behalf of the President, said the provision of the food items is to support the Muslims' 30-day Ramadan fasting. Haruna Yusuf Umpune's report.
Deputy Eastern Regional Minister Mavis Ama Frimpong acknowledged the prayers of Muslims for continued peace and unity during the election petition case, which was in court last year, and urged Muslims in the region to continue to pray for the nation, most especially the President and his ministers, for the smooth development of the country. The Eastern Regional Chief Imam, Alhaji Yusuf Amudani Suleimana, who received the food items on behalf of all Muslims in the region, thanked the President and his ministers and the RCC for supporting them. He urged all Muslims across the country to use the Ramadan fasting period to pray for the nation through these difficult times of economic hardship. Haruna Yusuf Wumpune's report from the Eastern region.
Up next, we bring you international news.
Hello there, time now to get you updated with some business reports. My name is Abigail Adumakoinchi. Now, the chairman of the Energy Committee in Parliament has blamed the controversial rental of office space by the National Petroleum Authority for $63,000 a month on the state's failure to accommodate its agencies. Dr. Kwabena Donkor is questioning why a state institution that's been in existence for more than 10 years would be housed in rented accommodation. He says government must provide offices for agencies that are created by the state.
With NPA, BOST has also come into the news on similar thing, and it's not only with BOST. You remember in 2007, Energy Commission, Framer House. So the Ghanaian state must fundamentally come to a position where state organizations, state agencies, especially those that are awash with cash, should never rent beyond 2 years of coming into existence. And it can be done. I did it when I was Chief Executive of Petroleum Commission. Within 1.5 years of existence, we acquired our own property through a mortgage, through mortgage finance. So the fundamental issue we should be looking at is why state organizations should be renting commercial properties. I will blame the managements, past and present, all the way from when NPA was set up under the NPP regime. I will blame all of them, the boards and management, for not, and the Ministry of Energy, the supervising ministry, for not ensuring that the organization acquires its own property. That is the fundamental, and it's not NPA, it's not only in the energy sector. There are too many state agencies renting property. That is what I hope the media will begin to question. The tenancy agreement, which we requested and cited, was for a 3-year period. The organization has over 200 staff. They have to be accommodated somewhere. That they have to, and it will take them about 3 years to acquire land and build. So it is proper that within that period, they put up their own office accommodation so that we can discontinue with the payment of rent. The committee has impressed on them that under no circumstances should that directive from the Chief of Staff's office be breached, in that next year we want to see where they have reached in terms of putting up their own permanent structure. And I believe they agree with us that that situation should never have arisen in the first place. And for me, that is the fundamental issues.
Well, inflation is up again, and this time the rate for June 2014 is 15% up from 14.8% recorded in May 2014. The June figure, 4-year high, is attributed to the high non-food inflation rate, which includes housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, as well as transport.
The monthly inflation change rate in June 2014 was 1.6% compared to the 0.9% recorded in May 2014. The non-food group recorded an average year-on-year inflation rate of 20.3% in June 2014 compared to a rate of 20.0% recorded in May 2014. Housing, utility, gas and other fuels recorded the highest rate of 53.6% among the non-food group, shooting the inflation rate for June 2014.
Inflation is a yearly affair, and I look at how much prices have changed over 1 year. So when that we are looking at the June 2014 inflation, we are looking at how much price have increased from June 2013 to June 2014. So within this past year, look at how prices have changed, especially the utility prices and then the fuel prices. All these price changes are within this inflation.
For the Ghana Statistical Service, pressure on the exchange rate with a consistent cedi depreciation also impacted on inflation. Although the continuous hike in inflation is expected to result in high interest rates, the Ghana Statistical Service is optimistic this food season will stabilize the rate in the coming months.
This year, we are lucky that the rainfall has been very, very good. It means that there won't be shortage of food. So that as long as the food prices also remain very good concern, it have a negative effect on inflation. So that will also bring the inflation prices down. So the combined effect of the government and then the good weather pattern, I hope it will bring it will start bringing the inflation down when we are entering July, August, September, because this time is when the food effect of the inflation is felt to make the inflation go down.
The food and non-alcoholic beverages group, meanwhile, recorded an average year-on-year inflation rate of 7.9%, a fall of 0.1 percentage points from the 8.0% recorded May 2014.
Well, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has raised its key lending rate, the policy rate, from 18% to 19%. The decision, the MPC explains, is as a result of the elevated risk to high inflation following persistent fiscal and exchange pressures. We'll bring you the full story, but before that, financial consultant Sidney Casely-Hayford is meanwhile asking the country's economic managers not to be so fixated with economic jargons, but rather concentrate on modalities aimed at dealing with the current challenges. Reacting to the latest assessment of the economy by the Bank of Ghana, he said there should be a lot more emphasis on revenue generation. He spoke on today's Big Story.
I don't like those labels, because when you talk about monetary policy, then people judge you according to the monetary policy you're putting in place, or else you have a fiscal policy stance and then people are judging whether or not you're actually applying true fiscal policy or true monetary policy. I think all that really at this time is a waste of time. We should focus on what actually generates revenue and what allows us to shed. Why not? It's a term. They are terminologies. They are economically defined terms. But I'm saying think outside the box. This is not the time to be sitting down saying I'm a neo-capitalist or I'm a property owning capitalist or I'm a social democrat. This is not the time. This is the time when you've actually got to sit down and look at things from a pure numbers point of view. All right? How much income are we generating from taxes? How are we applying that income? How much am I spending on my day-to-day running of this economy, and how can I manage that better? How much more is there outside of the nets that I have now, the tax nets, that I can bring into the economy in order to be able to increase my economic base?
So we'll go back to the MPC meeting, and the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has raised its key lending rate, the policy rate, from 18 to 19%. The decision, the MPC explains, is as a result of the elevated risk to high inflation following persistent fiscal and exchange rate pressures. The MPC made it clear that inflation, which is now 15%, is likely to return to the target band of 9.52% by the last quarter of 2015, barring any significant shocks. The committee also admitted that pressures on the cedi still persist, although it has observed some moderation in the pace of depreciation on a month-on-month basis. It said the continuing fiscal and exchange rate pressures are worsening the inflation outlook. Thus, the decision to adjust the policy rate upwards to 19%.
Some of these policies will initially raise that. They will raise the cost of credit, they will increase the lending rates and so on. But I'm saying that these are not permanent policies. They will be reversed once we get the stability. And if you look at economic theory and the practice, when you have a lot of liquidity in the system, you need to raise the cost of it to reduce the demand, and that so that those who have the liquidity would be able to invest. In other words, you want to sterilize. The central bank wants to sterilize that liquidity, and the only way you sterilize it and avoid the consequences of that liquidity affecting your inflationary outlook and so on is to raise the cost.
Dr. Henry Kofi Wampa maintains, although the FREX measures are working, the intensified speculations on the currency depreciation is further causing its fall.
Even if you say the cedi is going to depreciate, I don't know, but to put a figure to it without any basis, you get what? Someone can stand up today and say the cedi will depreciate to there will be 5 cedis to the dollar by the end of the year. If you ask him where he gets that 5 cedis, he can't tell you. I'm saying that's the type. I don't. If the guy comes out and says that, well, he believes that because of the lack of liquidity and so on, the cedi may continue to be under pressure and therefore may depreciate further, I don't have any problem with that. I'm saying putting figures on it that you cannot really defend or tell us where you got those figures from.
The Bank of Ghana is, however, optimistic. The cocoa syndicated loan and the Eurobond issuance estimated at almost $3 billion, and the coming on stream of the new oil and gas fields would significantly improve market conditions in the second half of 2016. Abigail Adumakunchi for Joy News. Well, let's still keep praying for the economy. There's still hope, I believe. That's it for business. I'm Abigail Adumakunchi.
World Cup is ongoing, certainly. A semi-final game between the Netherlands and Argentina. Well, not like we had yesterday, 7 goals. Today, there are no goal scorers. There's a goal drought out there. The two teams have been playing cautiously. They've been so tactical and making sure that they're not going to have anybody getting right at the back. So the scoreline at the end of the first half is goalless between Argentina and the Netherlands. We'll be just keeping close tabs on that with what happens later on in the second half. There should be some goals to make it exciting. Hope it doesn't go all the way to penalties and, of course, to the extra time there. Let's talk a bit about Nigeria right now, because they have been suspended or actually indefinitely banned by FIFA because of that interference, government interference. If you've been following the story, you know what's happened. The Aminu Magari-led Nigeria Football Federation were dissolved, and they wanted to put in someone else. FIFA didn't agree with that, and FIFA says that they have been banned from football, and it means that no team from Nigeria can do anything in terms of participating in FIFA's competitions or all. It extends to the clubs as well. So with immediate effect, the Nigerian women under-20 national team will not be part of the World Cup unless this decision is overturned. And it's only going to be overturned if they reverse and reinstate Aminu Magari and the Nigeria Football Federation. Now, time though to talk about some news here in the country. And Daniel Ejekumhene has won the final Fiat Saloon car in the last grand draw of the Text and Win promotion dubbed the Fanatic Promo. The promotional campaign was launched in May by the Ministry of Sports to raise funds for sponsors or funds to actually sponsor the supporters to Brazil. Outgoing Minister of Sports Elvis Afriyankra spoke to Joy Sports shortly after the presentation.
Who is taking over today is also here. So even in the absence of the minister, we'll hand over and we'll present our accounts sometime next week. It's almost ready. They are just doing the final pre-audits, and that's it.
Now, winner Daniel Ejekum, who is a staff of Ghana Cocoa Board, spoke to Joy Sports after receiving the brand new car.
I heard about this promo and then decided to partake. I invested something, but you can't compare to what I have now. I didn't used to believe in these promos, but here I am, a winner of a brand new Fiat Linea Saloon car. What else can I say? Grateful to the Almighty. I want to thank the minister and the ministry for the promo, thank the sponsors and then the organizers.
Well, that'll be all for sports tonight. I'm George Addy Jr. Israel joins us with some more. Have a good night and say some prayers. Well, as if you're a Dutch fan. I am a Dutch fan tonight. Good night.
Castro and his female companion Jane Bandu, the district chief executive for Ada Jonah Hortu, says there is still hope the musician and his accomplice can be found alive.
Showbiz was brought to you by